And Henry?
And thank you for the introduction. It's been a pleasure meeting you guys. My name is Henry. I am the LFX community manager. And prior to that, I was working as a security support engineer for Microsoft for a couple of years. So I've worked on the proprietary side and now with open source, and it's been a pleasure meeting you guys.
Okay, here's a look at the agenda for our presentation. I won't read it bullet for bullet, but this will give you an idea of what we're covering here today. We'll try to cover on the key points around the LFX dashboard and what we feel like you need to know. But at the same time, please keep a note of the questions that you have. I hope in this presentation, many questions will arise and you'll see ways in which to connect the dots to what you're doing, both as an individual contributor, as a member of Linux Foundation, and as a community member. So we're going to start off a little bit with a history of LFX, and some of you are familiar with the tool to some degree. It's been in the works for several years. It's an incredibly complex endeavor, pulling together these different systems and databases within the Linux Foundation to present it in a way that is usable and valuable to the community. And there's many parts to it now. So you'll see this again in our presentation and then in the demo that Henry's going to show us. But it contains the LFX Insights dashboard. This is where we get the community metrics that was referred to earlier here today. LFX Security is our foray into bringing visibility and usability to our security stance, and looking for ways in which to improve that. Randy mentioned the security working group within LFN that has started up, and they're looking at ways in which to utilize this tool as well. Please keep security in mind with what we're doing, as I'm sure you already are. The LFX individual dashboard is something that we'll focus on here as well. This is the place in which you can update your profiles and connect your data to the databases that show up in Insights and elsewhere. It's got a tool around mentorship, formerly called internships, but we changed the name a little while ago. A lot of mentors have contributed to LFN projects over the years, and that's been integrated. LFX Easy CLA, we used to manage contributor license agreements in PDF form that were filed in certain places here and there, piecemeal across our projects. That's now been fully automated and is providing a lot of value. There's crowdfunding as well. And then these two beta items are really important. There's the organizational dashboard where you can see your company's contributions in open source. And then the project control center, which takes a project by project view of some of this data. And there's an LFN umbrella view. And then within that, you can get down to your project view, ONAP, FIDO, Anokit, and others. And when taken all together, this is quite a collection of data. This is a snapshot from the LFN website. I'm not sure how often this is updated, but it gives you a sense of the enormity when you look at open source contributions across the Linux Foundation, of which we are all a part of. Some key points that I want you to bear in mind as we go through our presentation here today. So it's really designed to facilitate every aspect of open source development. We're trying to get there with each one of our modules. Any data set that we have access to that we feel could be useful to the community, we try to add it into LFX. We want to build transparency around our insights and our code. And this is a way in which to communicate that transparency externally and help us understand the impact that we're having. And then I want to stress that for LFN members, this is where you can understand and maximize your benefit into the community and what we're doing, and measure the success of the contributions that each one of your team members are making. And want to shift here a bit to a sad note. Linux Foundation lost its CTO, Shubra Kar, recently, and suddenly. It's been a big blow to the organization. I had the chance to work with Shubra a bit over the years. Didn't know him super well, but I knew him well enough to attest to his brilliance and his problem solving. Jim Zemlin gave him a big challenge in putting together LFX and starting to pull all this data together. He's also a very kind and generous person, and he's greatly missed. So this is something that he started, and we want to finish it and perfect it in his honor. Okay, want to stress the role of each and every one of you to help make LFX better. So our community is made up of individuals, yourselves, and we feel that each one of you has a role to play here in open source, and LFX is a place where that contribution can be charted and displayed within your individual profile. And when setting up LFX, the accuracy and completeness of the data has been a challenge. It's something that we're still working on. But I understand from the team that updating your individual dashboard and connecting it appropriately is the best way to ensure that our data within LFX Insights and in other places is as accurate and complete as possible. So we're going to be giving each one of you some homework here today around setting up your LFN ID if you don't already have it, and then sending up your individual dashboard. It's not that hard, and we need to lead the way. We need to walk our talk. And now we'll switch over to an LFX overview.
Thank you, Brandon. All right, now I'll be going over an overview of LFX, and really we want LFX to be able to benefit the technical communities, the developers. A lot of you guys asked great questions earlier, and a lot of those questions is what we want LFX to be able to enable you guys to leverage to answer some of those questions. There are questions like, how do we measure our personal impact within our communities? Typically, understanding your personal impact to an open source community can be complex. Some have said that communicating the impact that you have with your corporations for budgets tend to be cumbersome or tend to be complex. You have multiple contribution types. You have multiple source controls. You contribute to multiple projects. How do you effectively show them the impact that you're having within the communities, the impact that open source is making for the corporations? Typically, you would run queries to get the contribution metrics from either GitHub using GraphQL or Garrett, and that can also be complex. We also have a question of how do we understand the health of our projects? How do we understand the direction of the project? What project needs help? How do we understand how quickly our contributions are being merged upstream to the main branch? Or how secure are our projects that we're contributing to? There was a question on supporting the projects. How are we ensured that this project jobs won't fail, this project won't crash, that it's being worked on, that there are people working on the security of this project? This is where LFX comes in. As Brandon mentioned earlier, LFX is a platform of tools built by the Linux Foundation to facilitate every aspect of the open source development ecosystem. The platform empowers developers to efficiently showcase, measure, and scale the impact of your open source contributions. There's insights, security, individual dashboard, mentorship, easy CLA, crowdfunding, organization dashboard, project control center, and a few more. But it's all under one platform, and it's all tools for you. Why would the technical communities be interested in using LFX? Or what tools should you guys be focused on? It sounds like there's a lot of tools under this platform. What tools are important for you? So we created a persona for the developers, for the technical community, for you all, and divided it into steps. When you're joining the LF project, when you are establishing to use LFX, there are a few things that you want to start off doing. You want to start off by creating your LFID. Brandon mentioned you might have some homework. This beginning part is the main part of the homework. To make everything work well, to have the data properly affiliated and attributed, the main issue with the data was affiliations from the users, from developers. To have the data properly affiliated, we need you all to create an LFID, and your LFID will give you access to all LF resources as well as the LFX platform. Also, update your individual dashboard profile. In your individual dashboard profile, you will simply need to connect your GitHub or Garrett, what the source control of your choice, and also connect your LinkedIn to easily affiliate your contributions. Your individual dashboard profile will also serve as a showcase of your contributions and open source participation, and we'll get into that later. And in the future, we have plans of making individual dashboard more so like a LinkedIn for open source developers. There's also Easy CLA, which streamlines your CLA signing process, either corporate CLA or individual CLA. Earlier, we've been using PDFs to manage our CLA process. We've created a dashboard where corporations can easily manage who is signed to a CLA on different source controls and easily provide access and manage the access of their contributors. So then for monitoring, if you want to measure your impact, measure your contributions, measure the effect that you guys have on open source, we have insights, which gives you visibility into your project's performance. As we saw the trends chart earlier, that is from insights. It also allows us to parse through our contribution metrics, where we can dive deeper into the data, as we'll see later. And we could also benchmark our performance against the communities. There's also security, where we will be able to see the health of our projects, the health of our repositories, our dependency health, the licenses that our dependencies are pulling in, and also code secrets. And if we want to manage our open source careers, scale our impact in our communities, we have LFX mentorship, where we could impact the next generation of contributors, attract new contributors, and also develop our own career skills to become a mentor. We also have training and certification, where we can learn new skills and increase our impact power by learning more technologies. These are the main tools that would be relevant to everyone here. And the question is, how do we start? It starts with creating your LFID. Many of you here might already have an LFID. If you have gone through LF training, you only need one LFID. If you've gone through LF training, LF and LFX are one of the same. So with your LFID, you will have access to your LF resources and also all of the LFX tools under the platform. Once you create your LFID, it starts with your individual dashboard. You would go to My Profile, and your profile is where you go to manage your open source profile to ensure that your contributions are recognized across your projects, to ensure that your companies or corporations are having your contributions affiliated with the organization. It also showcases your professional accomplishments, your speaking engagements, badges earned, training, certification. This will all be shown on your individual dashboard profile. Once you're on your individual dashboard profile, the main ask here is that everyone will connect your source control and your LinkedIn accounts so that your contribution identities are accounted for and that your affiliations are also connected with your organization. Another ask in setting up your individual dashboard profile is that you ensure that your email information is up to date to receive invitations through LFX. I don't know if any of you all have been invited to an LFX meeting yet or are part of a committee. The meeting invitation goes directly from the individual dashboard email. So individual dashboard is the center connector for all things LFX to streamline your open source experience. Now for the demo. Okay, we'll first go with accessing your LFX platform. So it all starts in your profile. We're also working on reworking the website because this is in the beginning stages. And as mentioned earlier, this was named Community Bridge and we rebranded to LFX. And we would love feedback from you all. And we will be reworking this to easily access the tools a bit easier. So we'll go into our profile to access the tools. And our ask from you from individual dashboard is to connect your source control, either GitHub or Garrett. And we are working on adding GitLab as a source control. That's something where our developers actually want feedback from the communities. We actually want to know how many projects are using GitLab as their main source control. And this will be good to share in our community forum that we'll go over later. So you would want to connect your source control here by clicking this button and logging into either GitHub or Garrett or Git. And you would also want to connect your LinkedIn to affiliate your contributions. After you do that, you would want to set up your basic information here. Through the top left, you can access the LFX platform. We'll go into Insights first. There you go. Let's search for LF networking. Insights will give us an understanding of the trends we saw earlier and will also allow us to understand the impact that we are having in our open source communities. There's a question earlier about how do we market our contributions or our impact to our companies or our corporations. Insights makes this easy by providing trends, metrics, graphs, and charts that we can easily download and put into our slides or presentations, or when you're creating community contribution growth reports for your TAC to access this data. So the trends that we saw earlier are on this trends page where we can see our contributor strength over a certain amount of time picked up top. Here we can see the aggregated count of unique contributors over the years. And this was the chart that you guys saw earlier. We can see the aggregated count of unique contributors that are active. And an active contributor is someone who has been contributing code to a project, either commit, comment review, pull request, issue, or change set within 1 year. And a drifting away contributor is represented by an individual who has not contributed to the project within 6 months. So this gives us a good understanding of the health of activity within the project. And we can filter between 3 years, 1 year, We can see the growth of active contributors within all LFN umbrella projects within 1 year, or the last quarter, the last 3 months. And all of these graphs and charts are downloadable. So you can download these graphs and download these charts to add them to your own presentation or your own slides, or market them yourself on your website. We also have trends on commit growth, new contributor growth, issues, pull requests, etc.
And Henry, just confirming for everyone, what you're looking at right here is a composite of all of LFN that is currently tooled into LFX. So this is the broad LFN view.
Correct, correct. And we can actually dive into one of the umbrella projects. We can dive into reviewing the trends for, let's say, ONAP, and see the same graphs and charts. Then we can dive deeper and we can go into our technical metrics. For our technical metrics, we can select a time range, either one of the preset times here, or select a customized time range here. And we can see top 10 contributors by commits. So there's leaderboards where if we have affiliated our contributions, they will be accounted for the organizations. We can see how much impact does our organization have within this project. We can also see the information for change sets by the top 10 contributors within the past 90 days for who has submitted the most change sets and which organizations are contributing the most change sets. We can see metrics on that. And we can also see metrics on issues and bugs. Who has been submitting the most issues, resolving the most issues, what organizations are the most involved in issue submission. We can dive as deep as we would like to on these metrics. I'll dive deeper on the commit metrics. So if we go to view all, give it some time to load. There we go. If we go to view all, we can see an overview of the commits. We can filter this data by a specific person, an organization, or say we want to look into a specific repository and identify whether a repository is active or inactive. We can filter for a repository or project under an umbrella. So we can see here when during the year contributors have been active and the amount of organizations that have also been active. This is a good visualization of activity for a project. We can also see commit activity over time, which can all be filtered up here. So we can filter for 1 year, 30 days, 3 months, etc. And if we scroll down, we see the information for commits and lines of code change for organization. And all of these graphs and charts are downloadable and we can customize them. So say if we just want to filter in for AT&T, we can just look at AT&T and just see how is AT&T engaging in this project. We can see commits by time zone, time to commit. How much time are we putting into contributing to this project? And we could also see a list of our top submitters, the top contributors. We can see what kind of commits are they, what kind of contributions are they bringing to this project. Say we want to understand how long are our contributions taking to be merged to the main branch? How efficient are we getting merged to the main branch to have impact? We can look at our change set efficiency and go to time to merge charts to understand, okay, this how long it takes on average for our commits to be merged to the main branch here. And what repositories are we affecting here as well? All this information can be filtered by repository organization or author. We can also look into the jobs. So figuring out, okay, how successful are they? We can go to the CI/CD overview. And we see the number of builds over time. We see the build results percentage. Build results by category under a pie chart, which makes this information easier to grasp and better to understand and better to market. To say, if you wanted to tell your corporation, hey, this is a good project to invest in, or I think we should invest more into this project, to allow them to feel more secure about investing into the project. This is easy. It's an easier way to grasp this information and showcase this information as well. Showcase the health of the project, showcase your contributions to the project and how you are also impacting the project as well. Finally, here I will go to the community leaderboard. This is for ONAP, and we can see in the community leaderboard for ONAP, who are the top contributors for a certain contribution type. Some projects, some corporations, some needs, you might be contributing to a project in a different manner. You might be contributing code, confluence information, issues, change sets. So you can filter for what information matters for you. So say if you were working on a project and it was primarily focused on standards and documentation, you can see, okay, who are the top contributors for Confluence for documentation? And you can filter it for that. Or you can filter for, okay, we want to see who's been finding the most issues, submitting the most issues, resolving the most issues. You can filter for Jira. You could filter for issues assigned, created, and closed. And essentially you can choose the contribution type you would want to see, and it puts this data at your fingertips to allow you to access the data quickly, faster, and also allow you to export the data so that you'll be able to use it to present to corporations, to strategize, to plan, and to allow you to better increase your open source experience and improve your impact. Now, if we go to
Henry, before you go on, for several of our communities within LFN, when we go to do elections, the criteria that qualifies somebody for an election may vary from community to community. There are some communities that's like, you have to be a code contributor to be able to vote in an election. Others is a composite role of how many contributions you have across multiple areas, whether it's code contribution, filing JIRAs, putting things in Confluence, things like that. This is where we go to pull that information. If you want to scroll that way, what we'll do is we go through, we look at all of these different columns. The ones that don't apply, we throw out. For example, we don't count lines of code. So that would be one that we wouldn't look at. But here is where we're getting that information when we build those lists of who's qualified for an election in many of our communities within LFN. I just wanted to share that.
Definitely. Thank you, Kenny. And also, if you see right next to author's name, that's where organization is. If you haven't gone to your individual dashboard and included your LinkedIn or affiliated your contributions with your company or organization, you won't be your contributions won't be affiliated with your organization, and your organization won't receive the credit on the platform. This is important because if we go to organization dashboard, LFX also helps organizations understand their impact. Oh, well, I have to sign in. Okay. Sorry for that. All right. This is important because it also allows organizations to understand the impact that they're having within open source. It allows them to understand what they're getting from their investments. And it also allows them to get a general picture of how their organization, how their employees, how their company is engaging in open source. So let's say we search for AT&T. I heard AT&T. That is weird. The and sign is not working. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Why don't you look for,
I'll
just
look
pick another,
for- yeah, I'll
another
look
company, look for Ericsson or something.
Ericsson. Okay, let's look for Ericsson. So with Ericsson, we can see what projects am I a member of? What projects am I supporting? We can get an overview of the projects that we're supporting. And we could also get an overview of the top projects that your organization contributes code to, with the percentage of that project that your employees have contributed overall. So you understand how much of an impact that you are having within these projects. You understand who are the top code contributors from our organization, who is contributing to certain projects. We can go here and see that Facila is contributing to LF networking. We can go into one of our top projects that we're contributing to. We can go into, let's say, ONAP. And we can see from my organization's standpoint, where do we rank against other organizations? The top 10. And then we can also benchmark against specific organizations. And not only that, we can see our top contributors from our organization for this specific project. This is where it is important for us all to go to our LFX individual dashboard and add our GitHub or Garrett source controls to our individual dashboard, and to add our LinkedIns to affiliate our contributions on an individual dashboard. Because if we haven't affiliated our contributions with our organization, your name won't be here for the organization to see your contributions or to be credited with the work that you're doing in your open source communities. And let's go here. Let's transition to security.
About the organization dashboard, I understand that that's started off as a beta, so not all LFN members are represented in there yet. Do you know kind of the status of that rollout and how we're going to get it eventually to all members?
Yes. So our dev team is actually working on this right now. And that's the important part that I will talk about after this demo in the community forum. But our dev team is currently working on a 30, 60, 90-day plan where they have been working on stabilizing the tools and really fixing all the little bugs with the connectors that we have right now to ensure that it's stable. And in the end of the 30, 60, 90-day plan, they plan on adding more connectors. For everyone that has a different source control, everyone that is not necessarily on Insights currently, as MCO is not on LFX Insights as of right now, this will be opening up the connections to other projects that we've adopted in the end of this 30, 60, 90-day plan. But something that you all can do is if you really want to be using LFX, it really helps if you voice your opinions on our community forum that I'll go over after this demo, because our developers are using that to look to see what our community wants. And we've realized that has been a big gap between LFX and our developer communities. We've realized that our developers have been creating tools and making tools based off of their own use cases and not really receiving cumulative feedback from the community. And that's what the community forum is for, because it is a general space for our community to have a voice. And our developers look there, Jim looks there. So when we receive feedback from the community forum, we have meetings with them every week and they go over it and prioritize changes because of that to connect LFX with our communities. I'll go over this a little bit more shortly.
And just a quick thing to be thinking about, and maybe we can return to this in the marketing session this afternoon. Part of what Henry's expressing is that some of that being able to show value to your employer is being able to show the impact you're having on these projects. So there is more data here available, but maybe connecting that further into the value of the project itself, so that there's sort of that full narrative, because there's a lot of information here that can help you sort of describe your value to the project. And then maybe the tie-in between that and some additional things of marketing, might really help, since we do have, all of this rich, robust data and more features coming all the time. So don't want to take your time right now, but it's something to maybe think about for our discussion on marketing this afternoon.
Definitely. Right. And security is another tool that we have, and we're still working on security, but it will allow us to show our corporations, show stakeholders, allow us to understand the general health of the project. How often are we working on fixing known vulnerabilities? How would our corporations, our stakeholders feel comfortable supporting a project without knowing how secure the project is, without knowing, okay, does this project have adequate support? Are people working on fixing the vulnerabilities? Security gives us a general overview of this through the scorecards, and we can dive deeper in. Oh, and we can dive deeper into a specific project where we can see how active has this project been in remediating vulnerabilities. Are they have an OpenSSF best practices badge? We can go into who has been working on the vulnerabilities, what licenses are attached to the dependencies on this project, etc., through security itself. I'll just go over that briefly. We can see scores, understand the vulnerabilities available in the dependency tree and the licenses on the project. Now let's go over Project Control Center really quickly, because this connects everything in LFX, and this allows us to quickly add other source connectors to the projects. This is where we get the information from. So Insights is grabbing the information directly from the source controls. So this is just a brief overview of how the information is grabbed. The information is grabbed from GitHub connectors and source controls, and the information from security is grabbed directly from the repos, and it allows connecting your projects to LFX. It gives it a simple GUI where we don't have to go through the hassle of installing plugins ourselves or generating queries ourselves to grab this information. The last thing that I will want to go over is the LFX Community Forum, as we stated before. So in the LFX Community Forum, this is a place where you guys can go and share your feedback, share how you feel about the tool, what you would wish to see. And it's a place where all LF projects share their feedback. Earlier, I heard it was mentioned that at times LF projects, there's a silo feeling between LF projects. This is where all projects can share how they go about handling their committees or how they look through metrics. And we can all collaborate to become better. You can share feedback or experience posts, or we can share general posts saying hello and describing what you liked in an event, what you didn't like in an event, how you're running hybrid events. And yes, here's a post from our community on how they use Insights, how a release engineer use Insights in ONAP to have a better engagement in her day-to-day. She goes through which chart she uses and why she uses these charts, and then shows the results from it as well. Okay, now if I go back to the presentation.
And while you switch back to that, so for the LFX community, it's a place to ask your questions, right? Make your comments and make suggestions on ways in which to make it better, including features and upgrades. And it is very responsive, and we encourage you to use this as a resource to help get support and understand LFX overall. And is there a GitHub integration or a resources place that you're working on?
Definitely. And there's also a GitHub community resource repository that we're working on. We've actually received feedback from members of this community on creating connectors where we can have different security charts for different tooling. Our GitHub repository will have, will essentially open source our code where you guys can use, we use SNCC and Blue Bracket for our vulnerability detectors. It's where you guys can go and take our dashboards and take our charts and use your own connectors for that. We have plans on creating a bring your own connector models for Insights charts and also for security. Right now, we have a bring your own connector for our project criticality score on security, but that is coming soon. And right now we are using the community forum for feedback and suggestions. LFX is for LFN. LFN is one of the larger community umbrellas in the Linux Foundation. And for better or worse, we're often called, as Kenny likes to say, the guinea pig for new initiatives from LFIT and the product team. But it's a role we welcome to show leadership and work collectively to pioneer excellence in open source.
Yeah, and I think what you're getting at there is it can sometimes feel like a double-edged sword that, we're trialing new features, we're finding some of the early bugs, but it's also a recognition of kind of how our use cases tend to be some of the most interesting, that we've got a great community, that we do file the bugs. So in some ways, it's a recognition of how awesome this community is that we're asked to do it. So sometimes there are some pain points, but also it means kind of like open source in general, we're getting to influence the direction, we're getting to make sure it works for us. And that really is, a privileged position for us as an umbrella to have in the Linux Foundation itself. Like, we are viewed by the Linux Foundation, overall executive team as a leader organization in this area, which feel good about yourself, give yourself a pat on the back. And, when you're frustrated with some of the bugs, just think it's because I'm just so good. That people are asking me to help find the bugs, help drive some of the features, because they want to make sure that they are serving us. So just something to keep in mind, because it is awesome, all of you, what you do in this area.
Right. And that's something that we are emphasizing, especially now. That's the main reason I'm here. I'm not here with the product team to defend the code or the tool set. I am here to make sure the product team understands the community's wants and needs, and to give the community, to give all of you, everyone here, a space to vocalize their wants and needs from LFX and how LFX, and help us come together to maybe figure out how can LFX help us answer and solve some of the problems that we are having in our communities. So here's the LFX checklist that we have for everyone here. We have 2 QR codes here, and we simply want everyone here to have their individual dashboard profile set up. There are 3 main asks here that we want from everyone: to connect your source control identities on your individual dashboard with the click of a button, connect your LinkedIn for your affiliations, and update your email address for LFX meetings. We also want you to say hi and share feedback in our LFX community forum. Our goal is by ONS in November, we would like to have our individual dashboards complete and to have LFN feedback in the forums so that we can drive LFX to be a tool that can fit our use cases best. You can scan the QR codes in the bottom to access the community forum or the individual dashboard. And that should be all. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes. Hi, Henry. How are you?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes. We have.
Can you hear me? Okay.
So not really a question, more of a comment. I think I really can't stress how much this tool should be useful for all of us. And I'm concerned because when you showed the QR codes, not everybody was taking snapshots. So really, if you're not using LFX on like at least a weekly basis, I think it's like kind of trying to drive a car with the blindfold over your eyes. I can't, you should try it. If you haven't done so, you should try it. I guarantee you'll find a lot of information you didn't imagine before. And I think every one of us should have at least a few like shortcuts in their browser to the like main dashboards of our concern, whether it's our project, our company, our personal dashboards. So I really encourage you to start using it today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Hi, just one kind of devil's advocate type question. What about GDPR, given that we're in Europe here?
GDPR meaning the online requirements from the European Union, the data protection. I don't have a strong answer for that.
So most of the data on LFX is authorized through, there are role-based access control points. So the information that you do set in your individual dashboard, it's all validated and verified. Not everyone has access to all of the information.
So the Linux Foundation has a process where if you submit your if you submit a GDPR request to have your data removed or something along those lines, we have a process on the back end that will purge all of your data, and it will automatically get removed from your dashboard will be removed, your information in any of our systems. We search all of our Google Drive if it just happens to be in a Google Sheet somewhere. We have a very thorough process that goes through and removes all of your data if you put in that request. And we have a specific web page on the Linux Foundation website where it has all the instructions laid out if you have a GDPR request. There is a GDPR statement on the main webpage.
So yeah, as a Linux Foundation tool, it operates under the auspices of all of the Linux Foundation policies around privacy, GDPR, et cetera.
Okay,
Hi,
Sandra.
Sandra.
Hi,
Good.
okay, so can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, good. I just have a simple question, Henry. How are you?
I'm good.
How do we find what our LFID is? I was on the individual dashboard looking for it and I could not figure out how to get it.
How to find your LFID.
Yes.
Got it. Well, so the LFID would be, if you go to your, right here where I'm at, your URL, the last four, and this is something that we will be working on to make it more visible for everyone. And this is something that would be great to even put in the community forum so our devs can prioritize it. But if you go to your profile visibility and see your URL, the after profile, that should be your LFID username right there. And in basic information, you should see the email address that you use for your LFID.
Okay, good. Thank you.
No problem.
Is it possible to get the data via an API?
So this is where we would also want you guys to help us help you. Having the data through API and having API connectors is something that is on our developers roadmap, but something that there's been a gap between understanding the community's needs and priorities in where we don't know necessarily, okay, do a lot of community members want us to have our data and our charts be accessible through APIs? So that's something where it's on the roadmap and it's not a functionality right now, but I would strongly suggest that you go on the community forum and ask about it, because we would track that and our developers can see that. And we have meetings with our developers every week and they're also on the forums replying as well. So when they see interest in the community, I can go to an example. Typically, things start rolling quicker because it's kind of like the open source motto. Things are said in public, everyone has a common understanding, and we are working on adhering to our community. Yes, Kenny.
It's time check.
Oh,
3 minutes.
got it. Any other questions?
So Sandra had a question about finding her LFID within the dashboard. But I just want to stress there is a different tool for setting up your LFID for the first time. Maybe you can talk about where that is and how to get it going.
Yes, I think do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, one more openness question. Is the LFX, the whole project, is a community effort, or is it a closed source thing? So can we is the code available somewhere, or is it
So
not?
we want to make it more of a community effort. Right now, I would say there are parts of it that are open, and then there are other parts that aren't. I think our developers wants to make it more of an open effort. And that's where, again, I can't stress enough your voice in the community forum, because if we start seeing voices saying, hey, I would love to help out here, I would love to help create an API for this or a connector for that in the community forum, our developers will be more attentive to that, and things can start changing for the better.
Yeah, so this is Kenny again. Just, you're hearing this message a lot about using the forum. One of the things that is important here is through the efforts of the LFN community primarily is where we have said, you know, we really need community management here, which is why Henry's been brought in. Setting up, using the forum and having your voice there is something that is listened to at the executive levels within the LF. And we have a very, very strong voice there, but we need to take advantage of that voice. And the more of you that are in there doing so, asking questions, just making your presence known will be highly, highly beneficial to helping LFN get what it needs out of LFX.
So last thing I'll say, when we talked about homework, number one, if you don't have an LFID, please set one up right away. Number two, this week, connect to your individual dashboards. Hopefully we've shown how to do that, but if not, Henry's going to be here all week on site, bopping between the tracks. Please feel free to approach him with any and all questions that you have. And if we can all make a commitment to have our individual dashboards finished by this week, then you can take that knowledge back to your companies and encourage your teams to do the same.
By the way, I think everyone in this room has an LFID because we required it to register for the event. So I think that's done, but I don't know if you just got it for registration and filled out your individual dashboards. But as I think the demo and this discussion has shown, that's very useful to you and to your employer, for staff, for the project, for all of us. So. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.